Yu-Gi-Oh! Everybody's full favourite trading card game. I'm only kidding. That's the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom. It seems to have a stronger sense of ironic detachment than other early 2000s nostalgia properties. Pokemon fans are generally more secure as they know they're on the winning team. Digimon people are often more emotional. Seriously, if you make fun of Digimon to a fan, you are going to hear some life stories. But they're not as defensive as Beyblade fans. But in fairness, I'd be really defensive too if a portion of my childhood was defined by competitive dreidels. But at least those people understood what the franchise they liked was. Here in Camp Yu-Gi-Oh! We were given a slow drip of trading cards, weird, barely related video games, and an anime featuring a game that seemed to make up the rules on the spot.
He cannot attack my sea monsters while they are underwater.
But his target isn't your sea monsters. Destroy the moon! My stone soldier has beached all your sea monsters. You have no ocean left.
No, my precious fish!
Most kids around my age who jumped on the fad early never quite figured this out or realised there was a real game to be played at all, but I'm not most kids. I actually sat down and read that rulebook, and by the time I had digested it and understood how to play, everyone else fell off the bandwagon and went back to Pokemon. But never fear, because we are living in the future, and you don't need to have any friends to consume a franchise anymore. You could support your anime watching via the comfort of video games. In this case, you were stuck with the first home console Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, Forbidden Memories, and it seems like it'll be a great companion. It's got lots of characters from the show in it, over 700 official cards, and even 3D models of all the monsters. It's got all you need. You might be concerned that you won't be able to follow this video if you don't understand how to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, so don't worry, this show is inclusive and I'm going to get you up to speed. It's not that complicated. So you place your deck and you start the game with a hand of 5 cards. You start your turn by drawing, but not on the very first turn, they change the rules. But don't worry, there's other ways to draw new cards. You can play the spell card Pot of Greed for 2 new cards, but Pot of Greed is banned now, so don't you dare. There's 3 main types of card: monster, spell and trap. You can normal summon 1 monster per turn, but not this one right away because it's level 6, so you have to tribute another monster. But this monster has a special ability where you could special summon it without sacrifice. Don't worry about it. Traps can be placed on your turn but not activated right away. This trap also acts as a monster card. So, spell cards can be activated on your turn, but this one is a quick play, so if it's face down, you can activate it on your opponent's turn, but not on your turn if you placed it face down. Oh god, even I don't remember how spell speed works. It's something to do with, never mind, none of that matters, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories doesn't actually follow the official card game, since while former video game developer Konami were making this game, it didn't exist. You see, I haven't read the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga, but originally it started out as a story about a boy called Yugimoto who solves an ancient puzzle which unlocks a dark spirit that occasionally takes control of his body and challenges people to various shadow games, with sinister and often ironic punishments for the loser. One of those shadow games was Duel Monsters, a turn-based card game involving summoning monsters and depleting your opponent's life points. This chapter got so much positive feedback from readers that the writer decided to flesh out the rules more and base the entire plot, mythology and characters of the series around a trading card game. Again, I haven't read it, so maybe the transition comes across perfectly naturally, but on paper, that sounds like what you'd get if people had loved the chess scene in Harry Potter so much that it turned into the main focus of the entire story. I mean, that's it, that's what the fans want. It's not even in a school anymore. The next 6 books are about a magical international deadly wizard chess tournament. Harry beats Voldemort by catching him off guard with a cheeky en passant. Forbidden Memories takes the already designed card game from the manga, but comes up with its own interpretation of the rules. Sadly, what they came up with is the slowest version of the game ever created. Here you can only put 1 card on the field per turn, and that's your lot. There's some strategy in the sense you're choosing what type of card to put on the field, so if you're losing you could use your turn to play a magic card that destroys all your opponent's monsters, but that leaves you open for a direct attack on their next turn. Apart from minor details like that, it's mostly a case of whoever has the cards with the biggest numbers on them wins. The main skill you have to master to get anywhere in this game is fusing cards together to make stronger monsters. So you can fuse a robot with a warrior to make a robot warrior, a shelled monster with a rock monster for a boulder tortoise, and if you combine a plant with a zombie you get a pumpkin. Yeah, some of these are kind of weird. You'd almost think they slapped some random rule set on pre-designed cards or something. You've got to appreciate the imagination of the dev team though. Guys, there's an equip card called Horn of Light. What should it do? Oh, it powers up horned monsters that aren't dark. I mean, yeah, good. That's good. That's airtight. No one can argue with that. You'd think this would establish a fun system where you're constantly experimenting, and the skill comes in learning your options and knowing when and how to fuse the right monster for the right situation. Some games have got a lot of mileage out of the ability to fuse cards depicting magical creatures together. And yeah, it's interesting for maybe an hour. But whether you see an opponent do it first or figure it out for yourself, you're going to realise very quickly that you always want to be making the twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Seriously, for the first 2/3 of the game, there's no reason to be making anything else. It has 2800 attack points, which means it's the strongest monster you can easily fuse with starter cards by a long way. So anything you could possibly find interesting about fusing monsters goes out the window as you'll just start cramming your deck with dragon and thunder type monsters. All you need is a dragon type monster with 1600 attack points or more and a thunder type monster and bam, twin-headed Thunder Dragon. And this is so easy because dragons will fuse with almost anything. Add a plant to a dragon to get Jungle Dragon. Add a Stormy Cloud and you got twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Mix together a warrior and a dragon, you get Sword Armor Dragon. Ready to be made into a twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Oh no, you've made a zombie dragon? Don't worry about a thing, you can still stick a couple of Duracells in it and it'll come back to life, grow a second head and you'll have a twin-headed Thunder Dragon. All you need is dragons, rock the dragons, mix a weak dragon with a thunder monster and you get a one-headed Thunder Dragon, top it up with another dragon, you got yourself a twin-headed Thunder Dragon. This isn't some trick I've got off GameFAQs. Everyone who has played this game knows about this. This is the problem when you impose a new mechanic on established cards that you can't change. Now you can't balance it properly either. So the first 2/3 of the campaign mode consist of filling your deck with as many dragon and thunder monsters as possible, and then throwing cards away until you can make the legendary twin-headed Thunder Dragon. At the start of every turn you draw until you have 5 cards, so there's no reason to not just throw away anything that you don't need. I should back up and actually explain what the campaign mode is. It's essentially a visual novel where you move to different locations. So it's like Phoenix Wright with the courtroom scenes replaced with trading cards. The setup is you play as the Prince of Egypt, and despite his position of privilege, all he's ever wanted is to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With the big boys, so he sneaks out at night to go to the local dueling grounds. From there, a traitorous high mage called Heishin betrays the pharaoh, while a friendly blue man helps the prince unlock magical powers. So it's essentially just Aladdin, with the titular character and Jasmine smushed into one guy, and the songs replaced with, trading cards. Things heat up when Heishin and his goons begin to storm the palace. While attempting to escape, the prince is cornered by the High Mage and his right-hand man Seto. With nowhere left to flee, the prince challenges the mage to a children's trading card game, and it works out as a supposed-to-lose boss battle, where you and your tacky little starter deck get curb-stomped by all the cool cards with bigger numbers on them that you might be able to get later. It is confusing what the consequences of losing a trading card game are in this universe. Sometimes you're playing it just for fun or part of a tournament, other times it's about life or death, or obtaining magical artifacts, or saving the world. Like, at the end of the game when you're running through all the big beefy guards, why can't they just kill you? Why do they have to play a card game with you at all? There doesn't seem to be any rules, magic, or internal consistency that enforces this. It's actually possible to beat Heishin in the supposed-to-lose boss battle, and if you do, he just brushes it off and plays you over and over again until he wins. Maybe I'm overthinking it. After all, it is a video game. Normally I would accept the abstraction and move on, but this is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game, a franchise where characters really do play trading card games for the fate of the world. So how does this match play out? While Heishin is invading the palace and you're like, oh, you think you can come into my home and kidnap my parents? Well, we'll see about that. Come on, 1v1 me! Well, regardless of how it plays out, Heishin defeats the prince and tries to take his Millennium Puzzle, because something take over the world. Genie comes to your rescue and tells you to break the puzzle, and then he locks himself and the prince inside it, even though it's broken. They're in the little shards, I guess. We jump forward a few thousand years to modern day, where a young boy called Yugi has reassembled the puzzle and is entering a card game tournament. This part doesn't have much to do with anything. There's no moving around and it plays out as a straight series of matches. It's an excuse for a bunch of cameos by established Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, such as Dinosaur Kid, Bug Boy, America Man, and My Valentine. I can't come up with anything more flippant than that. Her name is actually My Valentine. Your opponent in the final is fan favourite Seto Kaiba, and he has the Millennium Rod for some reason. This bothered me so much when I was a kid. In the English dub of the show, he doesn't even believe in magic, yet here he is with one of the 7 most powerful magical artifacts in the entire world. My only guess is they assumed he would have the rod because the Seto in ancient Egypt had it, but I'm not sure if this is a genuine mistake or a lazy switch up to get Kaiba into the game. Halfway through the tournament, Yugi is approached by a shady figure who shoves a magic key in his head so that he can talk to the spirit inside his puzzle. The spirit gives him some blank cards, Yugi continues on in the tournament, and all the finalists just so happen to be Millennium item holders because something destiny. As Yugi defeats them one by one, their items get sucked into the cards, and somehow collecting all of them sets the spirit free and returns the prince to his time. The modern day segment of the storyline is never again referenced or mentioned. Back in ancient times, you return to Egypt to find Heishin has taken the country over and has goons looking for the prince and his puzzle, which is the final key to world domination. Not that this prevents you from searching the palace while only running into a single guard who you send running off with his tail between his legs by beating him in a trading card game. In Genie's old room, the prince finds a map to the Forbidden Ruins, where there may or may not be some memories. The location of 5 shrines are also discovered, where 5 mages are defending the Millennium items that you need to retrieve to stop Heishin. The shrines all contain 2 bosses, a lower mage and a high mage, and they've all got themed decks and a field advantage that supports their cards. So basically most of the monsters they play are going to get a 500 attack and defense point boost. But they're not that difficult. The twin-headed Thunder Dragon also gets a field advantage from the ocean and mountain fields, so they're a cakewalk. The Desert Mages don't have especially great cards to begin with, and the field doesn't even help them that much. The Meadow and Forest Mages are a little harder since the High Mages have some of the strongest cards in the game, but as long as you've got a couple of magic cards to take them out, then they shouldn't be too much of a problem. After that, the prince will have 6 of the 7 Millennium items, with the 7th being in the hands of Seto, who has revealed himself to be a traitor to Heishin. You are ready to take your kingdom back. You head on over to the Dark Shrine for the final battles, and this is where the game stops for several weeks, possibly several months, or more likely, forever. In the final stretch of the game, you have to beat 7 bosses in a row without saving. All of them have better cards than you, and it is impossible. The worst of which is Seto, who not only has all the amazing cards the other bosses have, also holds 3 Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragons, which is the strongest card in the game. He also has 3 regular Blue Eyes White Dragons, just for kicks. Yet he really loves the Blue Eyes White Dragon because he made out with it once. It's complicated. Forget everything I've said up to this point. The core game is unbalanced and not that interesting, and the campaign is about an hour long if you played it start to finish without losing, but it doesn't matter. This point is where the real Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories experience begins. Take a look at this. This is the free dual screen, and enough of that cursor moving around. I'm going to freeze frame it and let you stare at it for a little bit, just so you can experience a tiny fraction of the amount of my adolescence I wasted staring at this screen. Okay, so if you want to beat this game, you need to hop on the treadmill and get grinding. You get 1 random card every time you win, and there's 2 main guys you need to be playing against over and over again. The Low Meadow Mage and Jono second, because now your twin-headed Thunder Dragon isn't going to cut it anymore. You need a Meteor Black Dragon, and you get cards for it from the Mage, and a Red Eyes Black Dragon to fuse into it from Jono. I haven't recorded my grinding for the purposes of this video, because if I had, I would have had to buy 4 new hard drives. But trust me, I beat Jono over and over and over again to try and get that Red Eyes Black Dragon, and in order for him to finally give it to me, I had to beat him 343 times. Let's present the best case scenario and say I beat him quickly and easily in about 2 minutes each time. That is still over 11 hours of my life I'll never get back, blown on getting this 1 digital trading card. Think about it, if you're a child playing this after school when your homework's done, that could be a week of video games to you. That's not even the worst of it. The Meteor Black Dragon still isn't powerful enough on its own, so you're going to need to buff it up with equipped magic cards. There's 2 ways of winning in Forbidden Memories, power and tech, and to maximise chances of getting good cards you need to be getting 5-star ratings for your performance. If you want good magic cards, you need to win via tech, and the only way I know to get a 5-star tech rating is to force your opponent to run out of cards. How do you do that? Well, there's a way to trick the AI into fusing cards on their second turn, but this doesn't work every time, and even if it does work, in order to actually win you need to continue the duel using only 1 card per turn. You always go first and have the same number of cards, so if you start fusing multiple cards from your hand, you'll run out of cards before they do. So you sit there, playing one card per turn, destroying their monsters but not attacking life points, filling up your side of the field with card after card as you wait for the 30 plus turns it takes for their deck to run out. So that optimistic 2 minutes per game just turned into 10 minutes, at least. And guess what? It could still take hundreds of wins until you start getting the cards you need. Like, wow, we're now getting into entire days worth of grinding for individual cards. It's unbelievable. Think of everything you could accomplish in that amount of time. Look, I made a list of everything I could have accomplished in that amount of time. You can make life a little easier by playing a little trading card game of your own. If you have free memory cards, you can copy your save data and swap cards to yourself via the third one so you have multiple copies. Although to do that, you still need to grind for a copy of that card to trade in the first place. Also, you can start new games on your spare memory cards. Every time you get a random deck of 40 cards, and it often contains a couple of good magic and equip cards that you can trade to yourself. So you swap your memory cards, start a new game, put in a name, get through the intro as fast as possible so you can save, quit out, go to trade a bunch of spare cards you don't need from your primary save file to the second one, back out, go to deck edit, swap the spare cards for the good ones since the game won't let you have a deck of less than 40 cards, back out, go back to trade and... Oh, sorry. Is this not interesting and you starting to curl over in your chair a little bit? I can't even blame you. Even cheating in Forbidden Memories is insufferable and takes way too long. It just seems so unfair to subject children to this. They're the target audience. Either they've read the manga or seen the TV show or talked to other kids on the playground who have the cards. All they want is the feeling of being involved with something and a new way to explore their fandom. But Forbidden Memories makes this so difficult. Everything recognisable about Yu-Gi-Oh! In this game seems to directly contradict and confuse what you already know. The villains and their plots only exist in the video games and serve to disrupt the canon even more. And the severe level of grinding required to get good cards is borderline abusive. You'll be sitting there, slowly sinking into your beanbag chair saying, thank you, I beat the Low Meadow Mage 200 times and he gave me a Dark Magician. He's not really that helpful, but finally something I recognise from the show that I can cling on to. You know what's really irritating about this? In the campaign mode there's a card shop. Guess what you can't do in the card shop? Buy cards. You can't even access the password screen through it, where you can plug the number on real official Yu-Gi-Oh cards in and buy them with the stars you get from winning duels. But anything worth getting is so ridiculously expensive, all this does is add another layer of grinding. All they had to do was give you the option to buy some random booster packs with your star chips, and the game would be somewhat tolerable. But no, you just keep playing, again and again, fusing the same twin-headed Thunder Dragon and destroying the same monsters, praying that this will be the one where you win a card that is actually useful, and the game has no shame about giving you the same useless cards over and over again. I don't even know if there's a maximum to the number of copies of the same card you can have in your trunk. I haven't even been able to confirm whether it's possible to unlock all the cards without cheating. After I beat the game myself, I took to the internet to find a 100% complete save file, and I couldn't find a single one that didn't use a Game Shark. And even a lot of the Game Shark ones have cards missing. I searched through message boards trying to figure out how you get a copy of the iconic Summon Skull card, and nobody knows! It's one of the most famous monsters from the first series of the anime. Think about internet game facts culture, and the relentlessly complicated and user-hostile games that have been worked down into open books, speedrunners who find tricks that were considered impossible to make rock-hard games crumble at their feet, yet finding legitimate ways to get all 722 cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories may appropriately be locked away forever. When a game pads itself out with mindless repetition and grinding like this, your first instinct might be to blame it on lazy developers, but that doesn't feel right here, for the saddest reason possible. You see, when you call for an attack, if you confirm the attack with the square button instead of the cross button, you get warped into this 3D mode, and you can watch the fight. This is the kind of thing a fan would want in a Yu-Gi-Oh game. And look at these models. That's possibly a double-digit number of polygons. You can't beat that. And as far as I know, every monster card in the game has been modelled with multiple attacks and animations. But who cares? You've got grinding to do. You want to be getting wins as quickly as possible, thirsty for your next pull of the world's most soul-destroying slot machine, waiting for that next big win. You're not going to sit around waiting on your PlayStation 1 to load this up every single time. This mode is just unimpressive enough to not be worth the bother, but still involved enough work to make you feel bad for ignoring it. It's genuinely upsetting to think about all the work it would have involved to have this feature, only for the designer's contempt for their audience to throw it all away. So weeks, months, years, decades, generations pass, and eventually you'll have a deck that's strong enough to beat the final boss rush. Even with a kitted out deck, you'll still need a lot of luck and knowledge of the Guardian Star system that gives certain monsters an advantage over others to get through all of them in one try. You run through a maze, beat a couple of mages, beat Heishin, go to the Forbidden Ruins, Seto says he wants to open the ruins, beat Seto, Heishin comes back and threatens to kill Seto if the prince doesn't give him the items, you give him the items, and this beardy super dude called Dark Knight shows up. Heishin tries to control him, but he's like, nah, and turns Heishin into a card and burns it while turning his attention to the prince and Seto. As all seems to be lost, the prince reveals the magical trading card that stops Dark Knight from taking over the world, and he's all like,
trade you for it.
And the prince is like, no, it's super rare, and Dark Knight's like,
Ah.
You beat him, he turns into a skeleton man, you beat him again, the world is saved, the prince takes his rightful place on the throne, Seto is never heard from again, and it's just over. You get a still image for a bit. This one image is all that work was for, then cut to credits. I would have started playing this game around the time I was 10, and isn't it a funny coincidence that most people's favourite games ever would have come out around the time they were 10? I'm not having a go, nostalgia is a genuine and valid feeling, but I don't feel any nostalgia when I think about Forbidden Memories. The only times from my past I connect with it are all time wasted. When I was growing up, I could have spent the time I spent grinding for Megamorph cards on reading Moby Dick or something. Then I would know 78 different sentences that describe a piece of rope, and I wouldn't have to pad my scripts out with references to DreamWorks animated movies. I don't understand people who have complete faith in their tastes from when they were children. That's before your critical thinking skills develop. But more importantly, that's before you have any choices. You can't choose what's available to you, what you're exposed to, or what the kids on the playground are going to declare cool for that week. I only got my own deck so people would talk to me. But it doesn't matter how much you defend or regret how you spent your time as a child. It is all, for better or for worse, a part of who you are, so maybe ironic detachment doesn't work either. Make no mistake about it, I hate Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. I wouldn't recommend it to even the most curious Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I have no warm feelings for it. When I think about it, I can't help but reflect on all the time wasted I could have spent outside being less fat. About 2 years ago, I sat down and made a list of games I wanted to do videos of at some point, and I did not put Forbidden Memories on that list. It was too much work to beat, and not that interesting really. Unfortunately, I know too much about it and ended up doing it anyway. I guess there's no point in running away from who you are or who you were. Whether we're happy about it or not, our past shapes us into the people we are to... Wait, isn't this the exact conversation Yugi and Kaiba had during the Battle City finals?
It's time to put an end to my past for good. As soon as I win this, I can finally move on.
How foolish! It's our past that makes us who we are today!
Whatever.
Oh, whatever. Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, okay? Just play the theme song.